Hi there folks, I'm out here in the orchard today checking on some of the grafts I did this spring, those two whip and tongue grafts, and then a chip budding graft of a sleeping bud I made in late July, early August. On this young experimental cherry tree, which I talked about in a previous episode. I'm using it to kind of collect cherry varieties. And I wanted to just come quickly and look at the grafts and how they are faring. But while I was here, I remembered a recent conversation we had in the Discord server about using Comfrey as living mulch or understory plant for around fruit trees. And you can see that 1 meter diameter here around this young cherry tree is covered with Comfrey, and it's very sorry looking right now. Many of the leaves have dried out and the greener ones are just floppy and dry looking, and the main reason for that is that we still haven't had any rain in the recent months. We are basically in a drought, and you can see that the soil has cracked extensively everywhere. I've talked about that in a previous video, and those soil cracks are now getting to ridiculous sizes. But I wanted to quickly talk about Comfrey. So this sorry looking and mainly dead looking Comfrey is not as dead as it seems, and to demonstrate that, a couple of days ago I dumped about 100 liters of water around the next tree here in the orchard, which also has a layer of Comfrey. It's just a circle of Comfrey roots, which is not full, as you can see here in this section. The roots didn't take, just a single small piece started growing, so there is more weeds, which is not a problem, but just demonstrates that where the Comfrey coverage is thicker, there's less weed growing, and this will close up next year. So the next tree is a young apricot down here, and you can see how much alive looking the Comfrey here is, and it also has those dead leaves and dying as well. But the main difference is the water I dumped here around this tree a couple of days ago, so it rehydrated and even starting pushing up new growth in just a couple of days. You can see here I've put the previous chop and drop layer of the Comfrey, and because we had an exceptionally dry summer, it didn't really decompose much. This was put maybe 2 months ago at the end of June, early July, so maybe almost 3 months ago, July, August and September, yeah. And it really didn't do much because of the drought. Under it, the soil, the surface layer is composed mainly of the biomass of previous decomposed cuttings, because this was the second cut I did, and if we had regular rainfall during this summer, I would have done another cut in August and now another cut in October, and it will still have time to regrow in November, because it's not really worried but by close to zero temperatures. It stops growing when the ground starts freezing. So if you're in a dry condition, your Comfrey will certainly not grow as vigorously as it could. And here with the climate change conditions, our Comfrey is starting to put out less biomass than it potentially could, mainly because of the drought. So if I start regularly irrigating those trees, and I don't mean like every day or something like that, but like a monthly deep watering of the trees, it will certainly perform way better. And it's a self-reinforcing cycle, because if I water the trees, not only the trees will grow better and possibly set better fruit, but also the Comfrey will grow better, and I'll have a thicker layer to use more oftenly as mulch, so the water will evaporate less. And another thing I wanted to quickly show you to wrap up this video is this section of our young Juneberry bushes. They're still young and establishing, and some of them prove to be very tasty to grasshoppers and leafcutter bees, and some of them are still young, and also they're grown in mostly unirrigated fashion. This is one of the main pipes, but it's just transporting water downwards towards the garden. It has no drip outlets here, so those were watered only once during the height of summer. And because we were set to have a very dry summer, I decided to use as mulch a thick layer of grass clippings. And you can see that even though there was a drought here, the grass clippings almost completely decomposed. It was maybe 20 centimeter thick layer at one point, shaped as a volcano crater around each plant, so the stem was not touching the mulch. And also the grass clippings were left here on the lawn to dry for maybe a couple of days and then collected with the mowing machine. So if we had a wet summer, this layer of grass clippings would quickly turn putrid and anaerobic, and this whole area would smell horrifically. And this would not be a good solution, and I'll probably use wheat straw if I had any available. And even the grass clippings, they're a resource which is to be obtained, and if not available, not easy to get and transport in sufficient quantities. So as usually in permaculture, everything is very context dependent. I generally prefer the living mulch of a comfrey or clover or other ground cover, but for those young establishing plants, it's not preferable to do so. And in a couple of years, because mainly of competition, and in a couple of years I'll be thinking about propagating some low-lying ground cover here, maybe thyme, creeping thyme, or I'll see about creeping oregano. But for now I want to keep this area clear of the couch grass, which is constantly trying to encroach on the space, and also want to kind of fertilize and help the soil biome by adding biomass to it, because the soil here is a clay mixed with large pieces of stone such as this one. So basically I would prefer a living root mulch, and I will work towards setting one, but at this stage of the development of the bushes it's not feasible to do so, especially without set irrigation. And in the case of Comfrey, which you can see that it dried out almost completely here by that cherry, this is a good solution even for dry summers, especially if you manage to do your final cut before the real drought begins, so the plants have less available biomass above ground to lose water to due to evaporation. This will allow for lower stress of the plant and probably better acclimation and survival of the root system. So that was all for today, folks. I am off to pick some kale for orders, and I'll see you in the next one.